Morning.
Good morning.
And welcome, new board, new president. If you've served on the board ever in this fellowship, raise your hand. Yeah, see, a lot of people have pitched in and done work here, and a lot that aren't here this morning. Mark Berger, John Studstill, Ellen Harlan, Ed Wilson, a lot of folks. I think Sydney's been on the board a couple of times as well. But before we begin, I just want to ask you if you have noticed something within the past few days, like I have, and so I'm kind of glad to have a chance to talk about it. I have noticed in my neighborhood, people are waving and saying hello. First they were saying Happy New Year, and now it's become hello. I've noticed in the grocery store, sometimes, and this happened the other day, but you got to be prepared. If you stop and talk to that lady standing in front of the frozen food entrees, and you say, "So what are you planning on cooking this evening?" And you might be there for a while, because people are really ready to kind of to have a civil conversation and engage with other people. I think if we can find it for ourselves here, we can move out into the world with a feeling that maybe we can leave some of the tension and just the anxiety behind and find a new way to sort of reach out and get better, with ourselves and with each other. So that's what Let It Be a Dance is to me. So people are ready for peaceful communication, I think. Let's get started with it right here, right now. And this favorite metaphor of mine on a favorite song on a Sunday morning, the start of a new year, the first meeting of the Board of Trustees, first luncheon following Yule, where we celebrated to welcome back the sun, welcome back the spring and new beginnings. And new beginnings often start with a few hiccups, with some epiphanies. The first dance class I ever took was in college when I had first met my husband-to-be, my first husband-to-be. And we took ballroom dance and as a PE. And he loved telling people after that that was his only B in undergrad, in an undergrad record of all A's. And he never really said I was the reason, but I think he gave me a sideways glance every time he said that, and I had a hint at that moment that this was not going to be a lasting partnership. So I found the perfect partner, I think, for me. We may not dance that well together, but we'd get along with a lot of other things pretty well. And some things are so obvious, though, when they're right in your face, you can miss them for a long time, especially when you haven't learned the mindfulness along with those dance steps. And I really hadn't when I was 18 or 19. It took me a while to learn to pay attention and to be in the moment. I was certainly attracted to the Episcopal Church after I had had that divorce, really while I was going through it. I was ready for something new. I wanted a spiritual connection to people and values I could appreciate. Progressive people steeped in a tradition, a history that had a lot of what seemed familiar as a former Southern Baptist. It was a modern version to me. The Episcopal Church was a modern version of an old faith. And I knew all the songs, and that was a big deal. That was joy to me to sing with that choir every Sunday morning. And I didn't understand all the liturgical steps, though. Some of that I stumbled through. But I was just inspired by the beautiful, amazing music in that church, and it was inspired. That music was inspired by some of the greatest artists who ever lived. I connected with them for a long time, and they were a huge part of my life. But I spent my time up in the choir loft, 15 feet above everybody else. And when I joined them in a larger group, they didn't have a clue who I was. I was often greeted as a visitor, even though I'd been there for 6 years. So that gradually became not my community. And when Ron and I met, I was still going there and still not quit feeling right, and we found UU. I've been a part of this community ever since. This place gives me joy. I feel a part of this whole congregation among you because I put some work in to learn about you, to learn some skills from you and with you so that I can keep up most of the time, or I'm at least trying to. I get to see the hard work that you join in to make it prosper and the new people who have new needs. I find it hard to feel separated here. I could be, but I don't have to be. There are groups. Oops, did I just do something? I did. Okay. There are groups, or maybe a subgroup that I could join as age or interests define us sometimes, whether we like it or not, or realize it or not. They do. But the larger group is here every Sunday morning looking for ways to move in the same direction, in the same space, with the same aim, to find our steps without bumping into each other or stumbling too much and causing a pileup. Of course, since we aren't doing this alone here in the sanctuary, we're going to bump into each other. If we don't, then we're not moving with enthusiasm and energy. That bump is always a surprise. And we step back for a moment to assess what is at stake. The work we do here is for everyone. To reap the harvest, we plant the seed. It's a way to share our love for humanity, and it starts right here in this room for all of us. Here's our practice floor. Here's where we learn to turn and spin, and we learn to bend like a willow in the wind. And sometimes someone steps out of step, they seem out of step, when they're just inventing a new one. And it's one that feels right to them. It's some new manifestation that is true to the nature they live. And sometimes we need help that we cannot yet express. And sometimes we can. We are so fortunate to have among us the people who can tune into us before we know we even need them. We cannot relate to each other unless we are talking and walking together. But what if we elevate that walk into a dance? So yes, we'll step on each other's toes, we'll trip up our own selves, but we're here to learn and to find a song and maybe even dance a dance that frees us to grow or just have some fun for a while, no matter how old or young or busy we are. In our past history, we've had some pileups brought on by great big decisions, sometimes by people who wanted to guide us in their own direction to somehow make us follow their steps. But our own improvisations wouldn't take us in just any direction, no matter who was trying to take on that authority. We had come up with we had to come up with some mutual understandings. Some written into rules, but not always, mostly not. And without the dark, there is no light. And the light we discovered as we faced those challenges have helped us grow. After all, we are bonded by radical ideas. The founders of this fellowship discovered a theology that was nearly wiped out in the Deep South. It raged against Calvinist doctrine. It scoffed at the whole idea of sinners in the hands of an angry God. Maybe even the city on a shining hill. Just there shining for some and not for others. Our founders had already questioned why people thought that had to be. They realized that some of the traditions, and especially some of the extrapolated beliefs and practices that those evolving believers espoused, might relate to another age than to us. And if we grow mindful of the world in which we live today, how can they relate in some instances? I'd like to add that a lot about this world is very little like the world I lived in 25 years ago or even 10 years ago. And how do you prepare the next generation for a world we can't even consider in a lot of ways? But the basics are right here. The basics are the values. We find our truths along our own path, not one defined by creeds, and we partner today to support each other as if in a dance of give and take, and to communicate in many ways, working and playing together and understanding the same songs in much the same way. But if we don't agree, we talk about it. We think about it. We don't just accept or reject without the process of trying to understand. That in itself makes our little fellowship radical today, here and now, in this place. So if we aren't already considering these ideas as we step into 2025, then we can think of how our dynamics of support are kind of a dance. We'll be stepping up sometimes. We'll do that for ourselves and for each other. We'll be stepping back sometimes. This doesn't fit a skill set, or I don't have the energy for this right now. But I'll think about it, and I'll try to contribute in some way when the timing is right, or in another way when I find that my path leads me there. And I have a lot of notes. We're willing to move together, to reach out into the community with confidence and strength, to put our values to work in the world and to plant some seeds. And we start right here, right now. Our new Board of Trustees meets in just an hour or so. They're counting on us to do just that. We share the laughter and the pain. We turn and turn again. So as it passes by and others join in, the rhythm changes. We find new steps. We teach some of our own. And round we go, sometimes in step, but often not exactly. But who cares if we aren't perfect? Through the good times and the bad times, too, we'll have each other to thank for the journey. So, that ends my talk. Thank you. I'm still getting over that cold, but I've stopped coughing and sneezing. Hal?
Yeah, Connie, you forgot to mention that sometimes in the dance, we step on people's toes.
We do. Yeah, I've stepped on some toes and had mine stepped on, so that's a big part of it.
I'd like to make a request. I'd like to ask us all to stand and give Connie a round of applause for 2 years of amazing service.
Oh, thank you.